Thank you. The program that we have, Math Jam, is, as you noted, really about trying to reach out to students to help them in placement. And the work that our faculty and our staff do is really what this award's about. But it's also about our community. This program was at the outset of it anyway, and since to a lesser degree, funded through a parcel tax in our community. So it is the taxpayers of San Mateo County that have underwritten this program, and it's to their benefit that it has worked. So thank you.
Congratulations. Next, we'd like to recognize Santa Monica College for their Prep to Test program. These programs have all demonstrated partnerships. They've demonstrated great evidence to support the work. So all of the award winners have really gone above and beyond to make a difference for students. And representing Santa Monica College, we have Isao Tovar, who is the Faculty Lead Assessment Center Coordinator and a counselor. And we also have Janet Harkelcord from the Academic Senate. She served as the Academic Senate President at Santa Monica College.
On behalf of Santa Monica College, I wanted to thank first and foremost the California Community Colleges Board of Governors, the Statewide Academic Senate, and the Foundation for this recognition. We're very appreciative of this. And Prep to Test was really developed out of concern that too many students were coming in to take placement tests without any form of preparation. And in just 3 years' time, we've been able to reverse some of the very high percentage of students placing into developmental mathematics in particular. And just in the last 2.5 years, we've increased the percentage of students placing into college-level mathematics by about 9 percentage points. It's not huge, but we're making strides, and I believe that the message is really prepare, prepare, prepare. It's not exclusively Prep to Test, but it's also all of the collaborative efforts that we have with the faculty at Santa Monica College and the staff as well. So thank you so much.
So both Kenyatta College and Santa Monica College were the winners this year. They each receive a $4,000 check from the foundation. Thank you very much. And we also have honorable mention awards to Norco College, who is not able to join us, as I mentioned, but we do have Willow International here, so come on up. We have Kelly Fowler, Emer O'Farrell, and Karen Boone.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited about this award because I believe we have created the model for bridging the gap between high schools and post-secondary institutions. The data is hugely compelling, and the qualitative data we've received from students who've graduated from Clovis West has been so inspirational. We are making differences, and this partnership with Willow International is a true partnership between a high school and a community college, in that we are all on the one page through the calibration and norming process and through the support of both administrations. So thank you very much. This is a great award.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let's have one, can we turn that off?
No.
Let's have one more round of applause for all of our award winners. I have two additional recognitions that I would like to provide on behalf of the board.
Chancellor.
But before, I just wanted to say also, thank the Academic Senate for allowing us to honor these programs. It's a privilege to draw positive attention to the success stories within the district. And also, they weren't here, but our friends and colleagues at Santa Monica College went through a very traumatic incident earlier in the summer, and it was a very painful for the entire system. And for us also to remind everybody about all the great work that's happening is a real honor. And I wanted to convey our special appreciation to Santa Monica, one of the great community colleges in California, so that they feel the love from the Board of Governors, and look forward to continuing our recognition of great programs up and down the state.
Thank you, Vice President Bond. Chancellor.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Rich Copenhagen to come forward. Now, some of you may know that our next gentleman to receive some recognition served for some time representing the students on the Consultation Council, and he had a real shyness problem. Yeah, the problem was he's not shy. Truthfully, Rich is one of the most articulate spokespersons on behalf of the students that I have ever seen in my career, and it's really a pleasure to acknowledge his work and to present him with this gavel, which says, I will read to you, the Board of Governors and the Chancellor's Office for the California Community Colleges honors Rich Copenhagen, July 12, December 2013, President of the Student Senate for California's Community Colleges, for outstanding leadership and service to 2.4 million community college students, presented January 14th, 2014. Please join me in acknowledging Rich's work. And at the risk of doing
Okay, I'll be super brief. Thank you, Mr. Chancellor, Board President, Board Vice President, Board members, and the Chancellor's Office, and all of you here. I really appreciate the opportunity to have served on the Student Senate Council and as the President for the last year and a half. It's been the best experience that I could have possibly had. It changed completely my direction in college. I started out as a graphic design major. I was going to sit in a dark room and design advertisements and things for my life, and that was kind of my trajectory, and now I've completely changed and want to get really involved in my community in Oakland and do a lot of work there and figure out a way to make a positive impact on the people around me. And so it's been absolutely monumental to have this opportunity, and it's really shown me that out of great struggle, which is what a lot of our students go through to get here, come beautiful and great things, not only in our system but also in the legislature and all around us. So thank you all very much, and especially thank you, Vice Chancellor Michalowski, for all of your support. Vice Chancellor Michalowski comes to every single one of the Student Senate meetings, has been my mentor, and has been an absolute, I think, saving grace for the students of the system. So thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chancellor, for everything, and board members again. I really appreciate it.
And the last person we'd like to acknowledge is Executive Vice Chancellor Steve Bruckman. So, Steve, would you come forward, please? Some of you may know that Steve served as the General Counsel for the organization. He's headed up HR. He's been the Executive Vice Chancellor. It was sort of one of those jobs when if you had sort of a dirty work to get done, let Steve do it. And Steve's been a valuable member of the Chancellor's Office team for more than a decade, started under Mark Drummond, served under Jack Scott, and then I had the pleasure of working with him before he came to the Chancellor's Office in Los Rios, and then again once I came back here. Steve is not getting out of the profession. He's become the General Counsel for City College of San Francisco, where he will start early next month. So please join me in thanking Steve for his dedicated service to the community colleges.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chancellor, and thank you to the Board of Governors and staff, everybody, and everyone else. It's been a great honor to work here. I've really enjoyed it. I have had a lot of different opportunities. As the Chancellor said, I've performed different functions here. Really had an opportunity to broaden my scope. I was the General Counsel of Los Rios, and I've done a lot more here than I had ever dreamed I could do. Shortly after coming here, we had the opportunity to develop a mission statement. The Chancellor's Office collaborated with the Board of Governors, and we came up with the statement, empowering California's community colleges through leadership, advocacy, and support. And I still think it's really apt. I think that's what we do here at the Chancellor's Office. That's what the Board of Governors does. And it can be challenging at times because we are kind of far from the field. And it's hard to know when what we're doing is really beneficial or not. And unfortunately, often we hear about things that aren't as positive as we'd like them to be. But as I was mentioned earlier, the Exemplary Awards is an example of positive developments, and I'm really looking forward to going to the college and being on the campus. At Los Rios, I was actually at the district office, so this will be my first opportunity to reside on a campus. I've been there for actually part-time for the past few months, and being around all the students is really fun. It's great, and I'm looking forward to it, and thank you all very much. I've really enjoyed working here.
Thank you, Chancellor, and again, congratulations to our exemplary colleges programs there at Santa Monica, Canada, and then also the honorable mentions at Willow International, and of course we want to convey our congratulations also to the folks at Norco. And thank you very much, Rich, for the time you've put in as a student leader. And of course, again, Vice Chancellor Bruckman, we wish you the very best in San Francisco. We will now move on to our next agenda item, which would be item 4.3, an update on Student Success Initiative implementation, State of the System Scorecard framework. The item presents information on the State of the System report. Chancellor.
Thank you, President Baca, members of the board. It's really a pleasure to introduce Vice Chancellor Patrick Perry to give you an update on the state of the system. I will tell you that Patrick and his team, in consultation with Paul Feast and the Communications Unit, have produced what I think is an exemplary report for our system, one of which we can certainly be proud, and one that we will get out into the hands of opinion leaders and policymakers across the state. So with that, Patrick, let me introduce you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Chair Baca and Vice Chair Baum and members of the board. This is our 2013 State of the System report. A little bit of background on how we got to this day. If you recall, the Student Success Task Force called for the creation of the Student Success Scorecard. We've spent the last 18 months revising the old ARC report and producing this report. The scorecard was originally created to have multiple data aggregations and views. It was what's referred to as the reporting pyramid. On the bottom of this pyramid are granular data that are given back to the campuses so they can look at these numbers in great depth and detail. On top of that, you've got the data mart, you've got the actual scorecard located on our website. The State of the System report is actually the highest level aggregation of the scorecard. It shows system performance, doesn't give campus performance, but system performance as it's in a whole, and also a select set of enrollment metrics to show where we're at. So the State of System report contains indicators that show where are we at from a fiscal environment standpoint, what is the status of our enrollment and course offerings, and aggregated student performance indicators such as current year outputs and volumes, and also outcome rates for first-time cohorts that began roughly 6 years ago. It is now an officially published California Community Colleges Chancellor's Office report. Kudos to both the research office and also the communications office for putting together a really nice looking document. Okay, Starting off with where are we at fiscally, and these are highlights from the report. You can see over the course of the past 5 years, we've had an obvious downturn in fiscal appropriations to the system. Our peak was $6.5 billion. In 2012-13, we went down to $5.9 billion. The state general fund contribution to that also went down. Actually, it declined even more than the total. Funding sources per FTES also declined at the same time. And the thing to note here is the state's portion of this declined at a greater rate than the total portion. This immediately reflects itself from an enrollment management standpoint into course offerings. This is how campuses basically balance their books by either increasing or reducing the number of courses that are offered in the system. So in 08-09, which was really the best year that we ever had in our system from a fiscal standpoint, we had our peak number of course offerings in the system. Since then, it's been on a steady decline for 5 consecutive years. Next table here shows you exactly the amount of courses that were cut during that 5-year period of time. Almost 100,000 courses off of a base of 425,000, which was peak. That represents a loss of almost 23% of the courses. And if you were a student in our system at that time, you probably felt it. When you reduce the number of courses, ultimately you reduce the number of students in our system as well in an effort to reduce the number of FTES. And no surprise here, at our peak we were at 2.6 million, and now we're down to roughly about 2 million. Similar chart here. When you reduce courses by 23%, we lost about 22% in headcount. One thing to note here, we're actually about to recalibrate this number. Before, you probably saw numbers like 2.9 million and 2.3 million. We are now going back to a fully system unduplicated count number. Previously, we were duplicating duplicating student counts across campuses and districts. These are the actual unduplicated head count in the entire system, count students who go to multiple institutions as well. So we are right now just above 2 million students in our system. When you reduce the number of students, you also reduce the participation rate. Participation rate are the number of students currently in your system divided by how many citizens of California there are. At the peak, we had almost 90 students in our system per every Californian aged 18 through 70. And in 12-13, that number had dropped to 74.6. This is a direct result of the declines. Another thing we see when headcount goes down and we have rationing of courses is that the enrollment status distribution changes. So this really has to do with the priority of who gets classes first. Students who are continuing students had been there before, they generally get first cut at the classes that are available. By 12-13, continuing students made up 2/3 of the number of headcount we had in our system. They got their classes first, which means there were fewer classes for students with lower enrollment and registration priority. First-time students, first-time transferring students, returning students who are students who had enrolled previously, stopped out, and now are coming back, and also K-12 special admits, all down. So this produced an effect of having a number of years of much smaller first-time freshman classes, and we will feel the effects of that moving forward as we grow.
Can you elaborate on that just a bit, Patrick, so the board understands that last point you
Sure.
made?
So when you have a period of time where your first-time freshman class is much smaller than prior years, I mean, we had classes that were 150,000 first-timers less than prior years. First-time students eventually become the continuing students of tomorrow. And the continuing students now, they're finishing their education up and they will be dropping out. And so our base from which to grow upon is now based upon a continuing student population that is much smaller than prior years. So it does make it tough to grow when you're starting from a much smaller base. Is that?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So not everything is bad news, however. We do have some good news. Starting with credit course success rate. So these are the percentage of enrollments in our system that end up with a grade of A, B, C, or credit. So this is a number that has stayed historically in a very tight band, right around 67, 68% over the last 20, 25 years. In 2012-13, credit course success rate had jumped almost all the way to 71%. This is as high as it's ever been in the history of our MIS database. So this is positive. Our 2 million students generate between 4 and 5 million enrollments a year. So moving this up a couple of percentage points represents a significant number of successful course completions. That's a good thing. Annual number of awards, or the annual volume of AAs, ASs, and certificates awarded in our system, has gone up tremendously over the past 5 years, from 134,000 to about 168,000. Remember here, though, that the students in 11-12 and 12-13 are students that started generally in the good years, right? Those are students that are pushing through when enrollments were high. So this is something we're going to have to pay attention to with these smaller cohorts moving through. They're going to produce less graduates, but I'm going to talk about some compensatory things that will keep this number up, I believe. Of rather middling news are our annual volume of transfers. Now, University of California, they generally have a pretty stable transfer environment. Even in bad years, they generally either stay the same or still go up a few hundred every year. CSU, who is our biggest transfer partner and represents roughly around 50% of our total annual volume of transfers, you can see the jagged line there. This is a much more volatile environment. They have their own fiscal issues to deal with, and transfers generally are one of their enrollment management levers to balance their books as well. So this number has gone up and down kind of wildly and dramatically over the past number of years, and this will also have an effect, which I'll show you in a minute. Scorecard metrics. So these are the metrics that are actually in the scorecard, and these are based upon cohorts of students that began 6 years ago. And we're looking at those past 5 cohorts. And I'll start from the bottom. So the percentage of students who completed an ESL remedial sequence has gone up. The percentage of students that have completed a remedial math sequence have gone up. Percentage of students that have completed a remedial English sequence have gone up. Percentage of students who have completed a CTE vocational program have gone up. Percentage of students that have reached the 30-unit threshold, up. Percentage of students that are enrolled contiguously for 3 terms upon entry have gone up. The one thing that has gone down during these past 5 cohorts is really the alpha metric of them all, which is the percentage of students who earn a degree, a certificate, or transfer to a 4-year institution, which on the surface makes no sense. How can all these other things be going up for these cohorts, yet the completion rate is going down? So my staff went about this data dig to try and find and pinpoint where this is at. And this is the metric on the scorecard, completion, and you can see this number is 49.2% for degree and certificate and transfer-seeking students. And our scorecard bifurcates this between students who came to us fully prepared, never had to take a remedial course, or unprepared, had to take a remedial course. It's about 75-25 remedial. If you look at the students who came to us fully prepared, never had to take a remedial course, let me explain this chart. Cohort of students that began in 2000, 2001 tracked for 6 years forward. That cohort of first-time students who never had to take a remedial course consisted of 51,000 students. Within 6 years, 38,000 of those students had achieved a degree, a certificate, or a transfer. So they had an outcome rate of 74%. We looked at those outcomes, degree, certificate, or transfer, to see what was the distribution of those. And in this group, 90% of those 38,044 students transferred to a 4-year institution. So very high transfer rate for this population. Some of them got a certificate, maybe 20% got an associate's degree. But if you look down that column, percentage of outcome that was transfer, you'll see that it's going down over time. That is a less prominent outcome for this group as you move forward. And it tracks perfectly with the outcome rate. As that rate goes down, the overall cohort rate goes down. So it goes down 5% for the college-prepared group. If you look at the remedial students, which are 2.5 times the volume of the prepared students, and look down the same column, you'll see it goes down 10 points with an associated drop in rate. So it was actually pretty easy to pinpoint, and when you go back and you look at who is our biggest transfer partner, CSU, there's a secondary effect with things going on in the proprietary sector. There was also a drop in transfers to the University of Phoenix and places like that. But CSU is the primary transfer partner here, and their volatility over these cohorts affected this piece of the outcome. Okay? Okay. Looking forward, I can say with pretty great confidence and not going out on a limb here, as funding goes up, headcount will go up, total system FTE will go up, the number of course sections offered will go up, and participation rates will go up. What we don't know is when we begin putting on more courses, what will happen to that course success rate? Will it fall back into its old band, or will it stay high? And if it stays high, I think we can lay claim to a great victory there, that we've probably set a new baseline for course success rate. We will see what happens there. I mentioned smaller cohorts moving through, and they will ultimately produce fewer graduates 3, 4, 5 years from now. But compensating for that will be the fact that we now have the proliferation of 1440 degrees, which means many more students who leave us on a transfer path will leave us with a degree, and that will buoy our associate's degrees number, and hopefully will also ameliorate the prior issue of these cohorts depending on transfer so much for their outcome.
Patrick, reinforce that if you would. Say it again so everybody understands.
Okay. 1440 degrees will now be more of a standard for students who are transferring, and primarily to our biggest transfer partner, CSU. So these prior cohorts, which are affected by a declining CSU transfer rate, these students will have 1440 degrees before they leave for CSU, which means we will get to count them as our outcome. We will not be dependent upon CSU's enrollment management policies for our outcome rate.
As you can see from the previous charts, when CSU began to ration slots for our students, it drives our overall numbers down. We cannot control that. But as Patrick pointed out, once the transfer degrees are in place, even if a student can't get into CSU, they've been given a degree, earned a degree from us, and therefore they show up as a success. And it will true up, if you will, the real performance of our students.
Moving forward, as the system grows, I think one of the things that everyone in our system should be cognizant and careful of is to ensure that our growth FTES continue to be productive and focused on our primary missions. That is something that will keep our numbers moving forward. Scorecard rates, looking forward, scorecard rates are lagging indicators because they represent cohorts that began 6 years ago. We're now beginning to track first-time freshman classes that began during our recessionary times. These are smaller cohorts. They may have different properties than the good times cohorts. We'll see what those are. We have been running some side numbers and notice some general overall increases in system productivity. Fewer FTES used per outcome, but we will soon know what's going to be the effect of students unable to get their classes during these times of rationing and how that will affect productivity. And I don't think we should pay short shrift to programmatic changes in some of the things that we've been doing here in the system. The cohorts that we're beginning to track are cohorts that this is when we started the Basic Skills Initiative and started really working on assessment and placement and all the good work that the Senate has done. And so these things will also reflect as we move forward. So that's what I had for you. Open for questions.
Great. Thank you very much. Members, any questions? You know, maybe I have just Question or just a comment, but on the, I follow on the cohort group with regard to course completion rates, and just wondering the effect of the enrollment management during this past few years, or the maybe delay effect on some students in affecting that, because it does seem out of line. I mean, everything else seems to show positively, but then you get to that. And I know you dug in deep in terms of the cohort prepared, underprepared, and that makes sense. But do you have any other thoughts about what might also have affected that? Is it maybe the enrollment, the way the course offerings were, the availability?
As far as the completion rate metric?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it primarily was the CSU effect. There was a little bit of effect in there based on a slightly higher percentage of students from the 5 year ago to the most current tracked cohort, greater percentage of students who came in remedial.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So if you have a higher percentage there, you're going to end up with a lower percentage. But the overwhelming effect was volatile transfer at CSU. I mean, when you saw those numbers, there were a few more students that got associate degrees and certificates, but that was the primary effect. We haven't looked into if we were to track it for a longer period of time, which I would tend to want to look at. So if students are going through cohorts and maybe 6 years wasn't long enough to track them. We know some of them are getting their outcome after 6 years. If we have a period of time where students are having a very hard time getting their courses, it would tend to delay a number of people and maybe push some of them out beyond the 6 year tracking period. I would look at that.
Thank you. Member Sumi?
First of all, thank you again, Vice Chancellor, for another terrific report. Appreciate it very much. And I was just curious in terms of these, aside from the completion rate, all the various increases that we see, for example, in the remedial success rate in English, math, and ESL, what those might be attributed to. I mean, are practices changing within the colleges? I know that, for example, in remedial, several years ago, the RP group had put out, a best practices, and there was follow-up on that with, various efforts to improve the instruction in remedial. I mean, is that having an effect?
I mean, it's hard to specifically pinpoint it, but I would wager to say yes. I mean, these are cohorts where those things began to take shape in our system, and there's been a refinement of assessment and placement and delivery and acceleration and things like that. So I have no problem saying it's not it's probably attributable to some of that. I totally agree.
Thank you.
Chancellor, you?
Well, I just want to, the last point Patrick made in his presentation is important for all of us, and that is that seeing these numbers change requires a tremendous amount of patience, and we as a group of professionals have to be patient, because the changes we're making this year will show up in these data in 1920. And so it's constantly a battle in the legislature and with the administration, and for that matter in the court of public opinion, that it takes time to see the impact of the changes that are being made. And I think all of us are going to see this initiative, the Student Success Initiative, through to its completion. But even at that point, which probably will be 2015, we won't be able to see the real impact that's going to make for several more years. We just have to have faith that if we do what we said we're going to do, we're going to be rewarded on down the road.
Vice President Mao?
I have a question. First off, thank you for this terrific report, and then also for presenting it in a way that will be a real great resource across and in the Capitol and in the Governor's office and up and down the state. It's very helpful. Mike, what I see is also a reflection of the steps that we've taken to make the system more efficient. When we adopt the Student Success Task Force recommendations, we're naturally going to start pushing students through the system in a more predictable way. And how will we assess? We always want to say more certificates, more students. But, and we were at 2.6 or 2.9 million students before. How will we assess statewide economic needs as well as educational needs to know what is the right number of students that should have access to the community college system? Is it 2 million? Is it 2.1 million? Should there be a target enrollment? We always want more, but maybe because the economy is going gangbusters and that the students that were that were knocking around for 6 years to get a 2-year degree move through, we might see a shrinking of that community college population. How will we assess that?
Well, I think that that's a very difficult question to answer. I would argue pretty vehemently that there ought to be a 10% participation rate in California, which would be roughly somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.7 to 3 million students.
Okay.
But as you point out, Member Baum, as the economy improves or tanks, that tends to drive students to or away from us into the world of work. But for the long-term health of California, there ought to be a 1 in every 10 adults in this state at any one time in a California community college. If we had that level of participation rate, we'd be one of the highest in the country.
But then also we've instituted systems that are going to get students through that system much more efficiently too. So there is going to be that period of adjustment, I expect too, and we'll see that reflected in the numbers. So I wouldn't be so concerned at some point to see the shrinking that we're witnessing until we've kind of had a consistent pathway through.
And of course, very much related to that is the thing that we're very, very much concerned with because we are the community college system that is built on open access, to making sure that any shrinkage of that is not disproportionate among those populations that are particularly maybe underprepared or not ready for college, and we see that diminishing away from us.
Yeah, one of the things I think we should also look at as far as participation and usage of FTE in our system, I mean, some of the policies we're about to enact, and we encourage students to go more full-time. And as we know, more full-time usually means faster movement through the system, greater outcomes. But full-time students consume more FTE, which generally means you will have fewer headcount. So there's compensatory things there, right? I mean, we have, 1.1 million FTE. We could serve 1.1 million full-time students if they all went full-time, or we could serve 4 million students all taking one course. So there's a balance there.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, because I remember when Jack Scott was chancellor too, when we started the rationing process, we would be able to document that there was over 100,000 students that were graduating high school that never were able to have access to the system, and then what happened to them. But then now, are we getting to a point, which we've done in Pasadena, to make sure every high school graduate within the district has access and has a pathway to go through? And if we go up and down the state and assessing demographic trends, can we ensure that every high school graduate in California has access to community college, regardless of where they are?
And one of the governor's proposals in the budget that he presented last week was that this board ultimately take a look at the funding formula to ensure that areas of the state where the participation rate is not where it should be, and especially those that are heavily populated with students that are educationally and economically disadvantaged, have the opportunity to have access to our colleges.
Well, this board, continues to seek student success, so we challenge students in ways that maybe hasn't been done before. But at the very same time, very much concerned that the student access, particularly with certain populations, is not diminished. And this goes a long way to giving us some insight as to that. So we look forward to your continued great work in this area. Thank you, Vice Chancellor.
Thank you.
Patrick, would you acknowledge your colleagues who worked on this that are in the room today?
Sure. All of my MIS and research staff, Dean Alice Van Omeren, Tom Lee, Ryan Fuller. Have anybody else? Atsuko Noniyama.
Good. Thank you very much again. We will now move on to board reports, and I think we'll begin with Member Belansky.
Just a few brief comments. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Chancellor. He's mentioned this, but mention it now again at the end of the meeting, being appointed to the Bipartisan Task Force on Government Regulation of Higher Education. I think it will be interesting to hear what happens at that task force and get feedback once you start in February. And also, I think it will be interesting to hear what happens and what gets said at the summit that the President has called that had to be delayed, but will happen, and that information you bring back from that will be critical and important. And I would just simply note that I did have the opportunity to attend the CCLC convention. It was excellent. There were a lot of good breakout sessions, and I always find that kind of helpful to go to keep up to date, to be informed, and listen to other people from all over the state.
Member Reed?
I attended a foundation meeting in Los Angeles in December, and I just want to thank again Eric Skinner and the systems office for being present at those meetings. I think it goes a long ways in building our relationship with the foundation. And I lost a reverse drawing at the COS basketball fundraiser. I think it cost me the next 2 stipends from the That's my report.
Member Hawkins?
Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody. This time of year, one of the foremost things that I like to talk about is the Classified School Employees of the Year Award for community colleges. So we've sent out our communication to CEOs and trustees. They should have received that with a postmarked March 15th deadline. I would implore the Chancellor and the staff to do whatever they can to further communicate that out to the field. If we could, send notices to 4CS, to ACA, all the classified groups, that would be wonderful. My annual goal is that we receive 112 applications or nominations for the award. Poor Clarissa if that happens, but we'll be happy to work with you as much as we can on that. But that's the report. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. Member Sumi, it's great to have you here. Great to have you doing well.
Thank you. Thank you. Very much appreciate that, President Baca. I will just say that for those of you who don't know, I had a surgery in November, and it was successful, and my prognosis is very good. And so that, it looks, with pending one test in February, that my doctor should be proclaiming me cancer-free, and that, so that will be, I will say that right now my hair is shorter than when I was in the military, and so, but that's not a bad thing. Anyway, my report would just be to say also thank you to everybody for their support. All around this room, I really appreciate that, and I attended telephonically that foundation meeting that Member Reed mentioned, and I'd also like to just say in close that I want to thank Executive Vice Chancellor Steve Bruckman for all his help to the board, and especially to me personally, especially when I was president of the board, and we had to go through chancellor searches and go through that whole process, which often is a very delicate one, and Executive Vice Chancellor Bruckman certainly kept me from stepping into it. And so I really do appreciate it, Steve, and my best of luck to you in your new position.
Thank you, Lance. Vice President Baum?
First off, also echoing Member Belansky's comments and your comments about the CCLC annual meeting. What was the highlight for me of that meeting was the Chancellor's comments to the opening general session that were very inspirational and also very effective in communicating the need for the system to remain focused on its key priorities. And I want to thank the Chancellor for setting the tone there, and also to the Foundation and the other staff that helped organize the reception for the Board of Governors. And for those of you that were able to come, it was a great opportunity to interact with the entire system. The last thing I was going to say, too, I want to acknowledge my colleague Linda Waugh from the Pasadena City College Board, who is here. And Linda and the board put together a nice ceremony for my last meeting. I completed my third term, 12 years on the Pasadena City College Board, including 2 terms as president, and it was a special opportunity to reflect and celebrate the service and the opportunity to serve the local district, and I was very appreciative of that, and looking forward to continuing to carry that message of the local boards to here at the state level, and so I was grateful for that opportunity and look forward to remaining involved. That's my report.
Thank you, Vice President Baum, and thank all of you again. We have now a public forum, but I don't believe we have any public comments.
Clarissa, do we have any?
None? Okay, and we have no new business, so we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Danny,